Also, I will upload this one as a further addendum just to reiterate the point. So again, you go around Scotland, just go to the museums, and it's just blatantly obvious what's happened. You look at if you go into the art gallery and look at sort of the history of Scotland and the creation of this sort of area, so the creation of Edinburgh Castle effectively, in historic terms, that kind of stuff is actually relatively recent. I mean, you think about the age of certain sites around Scotland in terms of world history and of course ancient place, but it was the 1800s that really was sort of the revolutionary time, because again, if you think about things in terms of philosophy, then the Celts just set the Enlightenment off, and it's just this wave coming at Europe effectively from Ireland. So if you read Roger Scruton's Brief History of Philosophy, you can think of how humans thought from effectively biblical literalism to more like the current way of thinking. And of course we take the way we think for granted, but of course it was an evolution over time. But those developments weren't risk-free, and of course the Enlightenment caused chaos as it hit the French, and the 200 years after could be really sort of summarised as the Germans and the French sort of looking at each other and being sort of scary power blocks while the British hang on and maintain our empire. But of course it fell apart really. I mean, various things to argue, but quite clearly after the war. I mean, continental philosophy comes into the country via Hegel, because nobody was sort of looking at that kind of stuff anyway, unless you're obviously in this sort of rarefied academic world. And because it's so good at creating these sort of imbecile cultlets, and the universities proved to have no defence, well, from Crenshawism certainly, they were very, very easy to destroy. So a Rufoist project in Scotland certainly is much needed. But in terms of just thinking about these things in a sort of casual manner, you think that the past 100 years, and the wrinkle and time ideology, or idea, is quite useful. So if you think about time as a continuum in sort of a Star Trek-like sense, imagine you can fold it. So you fold the time from 1800 till now, so well, the past 100 years was a mistake. We go back and just redo with modern technology effectively, and you can imagine a new future where we don't go down the wrong track. So the benefit of a sovereign parliament at the moment is you can do that kind of stuff. You get in with a policy proposal, you can do the current stuff from our guys is fairly sensible, so that's a start. But you really want a sort of grand vision about where could we go, what could we give back, and if you could set things in the right direction, you could leave your grandchildren a lot better place than we've previously had, and we can get back the sort of society where this sort of attack people anonymously by laptop stuff just doesn't happen anymore, because there are legal safeguards in place, and our institutions are never again taken over by these sort of parasitic bureaucrats who do this kind of stuff. But I'll leave that on there for a quick thought then. But just when dealing with matters in Birmingham, just think if this kind of stuff helps. I mean, if you're thinking, well, if I had to deal with these people, would I be able to keep going and just sort of shrug this stuff off? Then consider that if you think about things in these terms where you've got nothing to apologise for, if your ancestors made mistakes out of circumstance or habit or whatever it was, then you're not really responsible for that kind of stuff. We don't sort of do blood guilt in reality. Civilised people don't anyway. In Britain we don't. So, don't apologise to these people. But we'll finish that off as a Hegelian thought. But the managing director, is, to make the point more clear, is using a more sophisticated method. So it's a series of two variables in sort of an Ouroboros-like fashion. So the two variable people fight it out forever. There's never a collective response. So it breaks down collective bargaining while putting more power into the hands of the people at the top, because they're responsible for the imaginary equity substance, and that's how the structure operates. So it's not hard in terms of political theory. It's just that obviously people don't think in terms of these terms, and they aren't sceptical enough of what they're being told. And the current dynamic in Birmingham is, of course, it doesn't work. They're not clever enough to do it, and they're now sort of flailing around and behaving badly. But we're only into July. In fairness, we've still got until the winter for them to try something else. The correct legal inference, by the way, is they should have been proactively helping for since 2009 and haven't. So the legal bill is going to be quite high on a personal level, but in terms of the overall legal bill and for the city, if you don't live in the city, you already know how badly it's run. If you do live in the city and work there and live it up close, it's quite something else, I assure you. But when the commissioners haven't got powers to truly investigate, you can't do anything. You've got Mitchell and even Phillips is asking for an investigation into Birmingham now. That was back in June. So Gentieri is still pulling this nonsense even then, which tells you about the sort of people you've got working there. But it's not going to work. The siege can't hold. We've got this place and they've got Birmingham. It's where they've got no will. The fake bureaucrat always has a steel spine. It's never weak, but the fake bureaucrat can only make official statements, so there's no thymus behind it, there's no will. So when asked to engage in sort of any kind of ethical argument, they just hide. So we'll finish off there then. So Lindsay's Mott and Bailey strategy worked. We've still got the Bailey. I can sit at the back in this place and tell the truth every day. They can't do much about it. New witness statements are uploaded. They fail to respond and we carry on. So it's just a case of waiting for the evidence chain to be critically assessed by not Deborah Gentieri, not an AI, an honest man in Birmingham.